Welcome, dear viewers, to our second episode. Yes, Anya, welcome, my sister.
Hello, how are you?
I'm okay. Happy to see you live and kicking.
Yeah, good to see you too.
And well done. I'm extremely happy to see you again on our second episode. I know many people are looking forward to this. In fact, friends have been telling me to send them a link, and I'm going to request our producers, Dennis and Brian, to send me a link so that I can be able to share it with my friends, especially in the UK who want to follow this discussion today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to have my comrade sister Anya back in the studio. We are going to be able to discuss quite important matters to our heart, matters that affect all of us, matters that we think are going to be able to help us move forward. My name is Kato Mukasa, and my our guest tonight is Anya. I'll invite Anya to give a brief introduction again to those seeing you for the first time.
Sure. So, as Kato kindly introduced, I am Anya Overmann. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, in the U.S. Grew up in the very center of the country, pretty close to the Bible Belt. So, grew up in a very Catholic place in particular. I ended up my parents ended up finding the Ethical Society of St. Louis when I was about 5 years old. And so I grew up attending Sunday school, what they called Sunday school at the time, at this Ethical Society for my whole childhood. And the best way that I can describe that is that it is like church without the religion. So there's a lot of community elements. And so that's how I was raised, in this very ethics-centered community that really has borrowed a lot of aspects from religion that are about community and community care and being there for each other through the milestones of life. So that's my background in this work. That's where I grew up. That sort of catapulted me into other positions of leadership within humanism. Some of my work was national in the US, working with the American Ethical Union, who I'm still working with today. And I worked several years for Humanists International, which is based in the UK, where Kato is now. So that's kind of my general background. I'm currently living as a digital nomad, and have been living this way since August 2020. So that means that I work remotely. I am a writer. I work for myself. So I'm on the computer and I'm dictating my own schedule and I'm moving around as I'm doing this. And I'm currently in Medellin, Colombia. At the moment, I've been here about 4 months, and actually leaving in a few days to head back stateside for a little while. So that's me. And I guess, Kato, do you want me to talk a little bit about what we're going to get into today, or do you want to?
Yes, but before you go, yeah, thanks so much. Of course, before you go into that, people would like to know a little bit about a few things about you to set us in motion. I'd like to know this digital humanism, just briefly, what you do at the moment.
Yeah, so right now I'm doing a lot of writing. So I started my writing business back in 2017, and this was quite a bit before I started being a digital nomad. So I built up my business to the point where I have some clients, and I can rely on that income to sustain me. I will say that it is not. It's not a very stable way of living. I go through some very rough months where there's not as steady of income, but this is a lifestyle that I've found suits me very well, and I prefer the risk of lack of stability that comes with all the benefits that go with that. So So yeah, I do a lot of website writing, a lot of blog writing, a lot of email content writing, just all sorts of stuff for businesses that are, trying to connect with their clientele. So that's my day job.
Yes, thank you so much, Anya. I'm inviting all our viewers to follow us on our Facebook pages live. There is Code Activism Africa, where we are right now, and I'm sharing the same on my page so that we can be able to follow us. And even when you miss at this time around, we can always go back and check us out. We post this on our YouTube page called Activism Africa, but also on our individual pages. Thank you so much, Anya, and that is very important. Now, for the viewers who missed our first episode, in it, we did discuss lots of stuff about how Anya came to be where she is. None of us simply drops in to be where we are. It's a journey. We always have a background, we always have a start, and we always have a nurturing and a grooming and a training. We pass through our parents' hands, our teachers, the community. There are so many things that informs our thinking that makes us who we are. Now, I should say a thing about Anya before we go into the discussion for today. That when I met Anya in 2014, of course, I saw a very and she is today. Of course, I was also youthful that time, 2014. She was very, 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 very hardworking. She was very, very committed to the cause. A leader in the humanist movement. She became a leader for the young people at one point, and she was a very, 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 very good, hardworking leader. And later on, to see what she does and be able to follow her work. And I should say, very impressive, very impressive. Yes, and has opinions, just like me, just like any other person, very strong opinions. And this is what makes us who we are, or what we are. There is no we all the time on the same thing. But as long as we are truthful to ourselves, and as long as we are honest to what we think, and we can be able to share it, we become humans that we are. And that's Anya. So, truthful, so committed, and so committed to what she does. And I want to thank you for that publicity, to encourage you to continue doing what you do. I know it's not easy to find Anya, to find another you. My father told me, I'm me. And I believe Anya is Anya. We want to get a duplicate. So as long as we still have you, we are going to ensure that we have the Anya that is Anya. So having said that, I want to inform the viewers that my co-host, Lynda Tilley, is based in South Africa, but they're having power challenges. I mean, electricity is always off and on. They take hours without having electricity in their houses. And as I speak right now, she is in a blackout. But she promised to be on this show, and she apologized to Anya. She's not dodging you. She's just having trouble getting online at this time. But if she does, she will be online when everything is fixed. Now, having said that, Anya, as we go into this topic for today we're going to discuss white supremacy from your viewpoint. And we're going to discuss it, especially how it affects us as non-believers, as it affects our community, the humanist community. I want to go into the atheism community, but I would say the humanist community, because this is where we have worked so hard. We have built our structures, and we feel hurt when our communities are not doing well. But I should also say that as we talk about these supremacies, you also have others that actually have been talking about. We have things to do with capitalism that you have been able to bring out in your article. I've been able to read your article, I think 3 times now. You talk about capitalism, you talk about class oppression, you talk about heterosexism, you talk about gender oppression, ableism, Christian hegemony and English language hegemony. You should talk about all those challenges that come within, because we are tackling a very complex issue at our fingertips, at our hands, that we all see and we need to change. Now, before we go into any other details, I know that we have already got feedback from your work, that your organization, having read your works, having seen you on different channels, Anya has been on different channels, not only this, talking about these very issues, they are willing to discuss the issues you are putting across. How lovely is that?
Yeah, it's inspiring to see, you know, it's really good.
It's very inspiring. So now, as we go into this, I'd like to set a pace to the viewers to know that your work is not in vain, that many people are appreciating it, that we know it's not about you talking about these things. It's about you talking about the realities. I should remind the viewers that when we met in Oxford last year, in Glasgow last year, I was so surprised, to be honest. Though I had seen you say this online, I didn't know you could be as that aggressive, as that honest, when you were looking for votes from a largely, I'll put it in quotes, white audience. That you had the guts to face them and tell them that there is a white privilege. And I should say, a largely white audience, which was supposed to vote you, and you are here telling them to style up. And you're here telling them that you are privileged, but not everyone has those privileges. And we're here telling them what you thought was wrong. I should be the witness because I was there as an ex-board member of Humanism International, and I saw you telling an audience of 90% white participants, telling them, look, we have an elephant in our room. So that's how sincere Anya is. So whoever doesn't know Anya, that's how sincere Anya is in her approach to life. And thank goodness that they voted you because you spoke sense. Yeah. Because someone would say, oh, they are biased. No, people are not biased when you speak these things. Those who are smart enough know you're not telling lies. It's like saying, I'm black, I have a nose which is big. What's wrong with that? That's what I am. And you were simply saying the facts. So I want to tell it to the audience that Anya is as honest as that she can tell you what may hurt you when she's even asking for your vote. Yeah. And basically, that's how honest people are. Because politicians that I know are not as honest as Anya. They are not. They are going to tell you lies. They are going to tell you what you want to hear because you need to trust them that they're on your side to be voted. Anya is different. Anya told a 90% white audience what would hurt them, but they voted for her. And that's how honest she is. And that's how honest that audience was. So I want to congratulate you, Anya, on that. And as we start this talk for today, I want to make that one clear that you have been as honest and brutal as that. So let us start this off. Anya, tell us, what is this elephant called white supremacy?
Yeah, it's a big question. And I think that it's difficult when we start with that phrase because a lot of people have come to learn that white supremacy is equated with like the worst forms of racism. In the US, we associate that immediately with, you know, the Ku Klux Klan and, you know, slavery and things that are really on the fringes of society. But really what we're talking about with white supremacy is a system of oppression that has been really insidiously rooted within our culture for multiple generations, and not just within the US, it's really across the world because white supremacy has legs. It's been used by colonizers for centuries to help control populations and convince them of converting to their religion. White supremacy culture and religion go hand in hand. So I just want to say that first. That is a really important element of how people force religion on one another, is by using oppressive structures such as this to help make these hierarchical separations that we create in our society seem more natural. So that's kind of the gist of white supremacy culture. Is it's this really like tricky cultural mask that we put over our entire, humanity to convince people that some differences are natural, and therefore treating people with those differences is fine. Treating them differently is fine. That's what it's getting to the root of. And so white supremacy, it shows up in almost everything we do. I said recently on a talk about this that it's like the air we breathe. It's just everywhere. We are so soaked in it that it's hard to really distinguish, to discern what it looks like to separate ourselves from a structure like that. It's really challenging. So that's what we're getting at with white supremacy. Is it's not these like fringe extremist racist acts. We're talking about, I have white privilege. I have the potential to exercise my whiteness in a way that could harm you, Kato. That is something that's possible. I could do that tomorrow. Like I could have already done that. Like these are things that we need to talk about. And that's what I'm trying to address with these pieces that are really controversial, is that, if we really and truly want an equitable and diverse community, then we have to put the work in to unlearn these systems that we've really ingrained and internalized within ourselves.
Exactly true, Anya, and that's it. And Anya, I should ask you before we even go any further, how and where did you get that confidence, that energy, that stamina to speak these things out? People would wonder, why should you want to say this is wrong, this is not right, when it benefits you in one way or another?
That's a good point. I mean,
not many people have that kind of courage.
This is a system that I exist in that I could benefit from, and I could just say nothing. I could. But it really makes me angry. There's something deep within me that I'm empathizing, and it just fills me with rage whenever I think about the way that this system impacts people that don't have the same skin tone as me. It makes me really angry. And so it makes sense to me to, like, of course I would speak out about something that is, rooted in us and causing so much harm and suffering. I mean, it is painful, and I don't have to tell you that, but it's painful. And I think a lot of white people too don't understand how this structure, how this system impacts how we treat one another as white people. Like, it does have a bearing on that as well. That's how insidious it is as a system. And there are ways that we can step back and notice those things and really say, oh, wow, like, I just thought this was normal, but really it's just another influence from white supremacy culture. So yeah, that's it.
Yes, and very briefly put, and that's the courage you have. And yeah, I should also, in your background, of course, I've been reading the article, but I would like to also add a little. I've been reading, of course, when you look at us as humans before the 17th century. I'm talking about the 1681 laws that basically created this so-called whiteness. We see a people in the today USA who were working together, Blacks, Dutch, British, Irish, Portuguese, Chinese, and all these other people working together without putting so much emphasis on their skin tone.
Right.
But they know we have a plantation master. We know in history that there were many British rebels on American plantations.
Mm-hmm.
There were many Irish rebels on plantations in America than actually black people at one point.
Mm-hmm.
There were so many. They are all working for a wage. The so-called adventure rebels who were treated, yes, they are Caucasians, but they are working on a plantation. These are black, got from wherever, they are working on a plantation. And we all know, and you have also pointed it out in your article, that they are working together for a wage, for a living. But all of a sudden, someone divides them and tells them that, look, by virtue of your skin color, you are better than this fellow label of yours. Now you were in a different class than this other guy. And of course we know there had been a rebellion, a Beacon rebellion, in which, when we look at history, all the folks on the plantations in Virginia and Maryland had stood as one against the plantation owners. The Dutch, the Portuguese, the Irish, the British, the blacks, the Native Americans stood together to fight the injustices of the capitalists. Then all of a sudden, we see 1681, the capitalists are smarter. Now they are going to say, look, you are not like everyone else. You are different. By virtue of this skin, we are going to call white. You are different. We are going to pay you slightly more than the other folks. So in other words, they are creating a class. In other words, they are creating a race, as you put it. Now, because we don't go into history, we begin dividing ourselves. I think I'm better than Anya, or she thinks she's better than me by virtue of the skin. But we are equal. We are the same people. Anya, trust me, I know there are many people in Europe, in the US, who have your skin and are suffering. Yeah. So the privilege doesn't even benefit them at all. The privilege doesn't benefit them at all. They are poor like me. They are struggling like you. But when we stupidly us, I will say us meaning us black people, now don't understand this background, we may attribute our challenges to everyone. So as we discuss, and I've been always talking this with my friend Lynda Tilley, who is a Caucasian, who was born in Africa, who has seen the challenges of being born in Africa and surviving in Africa, who shares the troubles I've gone through. She understands that this skin she has nothing to do with what people claim. That when Anya goes to Africa and is born there, is going to have the same challenges like any other person. So it's important that people understand. That's why I found this discussion very important, so that we are not divided by what people, if I want to put it forward, what the capitalists on plantations did was to divide friendship, friends, workmates who have fought together, to divide them along color lines, to put laws that stopped black women from marrying white guys, white men from marrying black women. That was now haram, as a Muslim will say, it was unacceptable. So you make one people look inferior and another people look superior. But in practice, those who are saying they're superior still are getting not so much. They still remain poor. Right. White folks remained poor on those plantations. Yes, they got some bit of benefits, but they're not all that much. It was the capitalists you point out in this article that still benefited. So as long as people understand these histories, how we were divided, to begin hating each other, to begin having systematic racism introduced in laws from 1681 until the 1990s, where a black man couldn't even have rights to own a gun, for example. to marry a white woman. People fall in love. I can fall in love with you. And someone would say, don't marry her because you are black. Now you can imagine that kind of unfairness, honestly. So when you talk about these things, Anya, my work and Lynda Tilley has been to remind everyone ever since we began this platform, look, this skin color thing is nothing. Someone is simply dividing us. I'm as equal, as same, as similar as my friend Lynda Tilley. We face the same problems with Anya. Someone is simply playing on our minds, Anya. So welcome, Lynda Tilley. I'm happy to see you.
Thank you. I've been listening. I've been listening backstage.
Yeah, so I'll stop there. Now I'll take it back to Anya, who is going to explain a little. Then we shall go back to Lynda Tilley, and then we shall have this conversation go on. Now, Anya, in your article, you talk about you make a statement introduction which says, "I'm white and lack the patience to cuddle white feelings." What do you mean?
Yeah, so I guess what I mean by that is that I, as a white person, engaged in this work of unlearning white supremacy within myself, am aware of how difficult it is to do this work, but I'm also aware of how much more difficult it is to experience white supremacy as a non-white person. So for me, when I experience this pushback of, what we would call white fragility, it brings up within me a lot of frustration. And that's why I said I really struggle to coddle white feelings, because I am sitting here and I know how hard the work is, and I'm still doing it because I'm aware of how much pain it causes for me to not do the work. So that's what I mean. It's just, kind of like toughen up, like have some empathy and understand that like the reason that you're doing this is because by not doing it is that you're contributing to more harm and suffering. So that's kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, I'm not going to enable those white fragility feelings. I'm going to hand out some tough love, and I'm going to say, wipe your tears, get to work.
Thank you, Anya. At this juncture, I'm going to invite my African friend,
Hi,
Lynda Tilley.
Hi, Anya. Lovely to see you. You guys have got gorgeous lighting, and I'm sitting right off on the door. Can you see me properly?
Yeah.
Great.
So, Lynda, tell us your take on this whiteness. You have been always bashing it. Lynda, welcome.
Thanks, Kato. It's lovely to see you both. I'm sorry I couldn't make it to the first show that you had together, but I'll be chatting a bit behind the scenes, and I just love the articles that you wrote that we had I put this week, but they were all over Facebook, and I'm sure we'll circulate them again. I think every white person especially, needs to read what you've written. It's so refreshing for me to know that there's somebody out there who feels the same way that I do. I'm very much a single person in South Africa. Racism is very, very bad in South Africa. It's, apartheid is still very much alive, but it's hidden. And, all the things that I put through South African Human Rights Commission and your Labour, Black rights organisations, and you get so far and then you just push back down again. And for me, it's not so much the physical violence and abuse and segregation. It's the more damaging. It's the mental. It's the breakdown of spirits. It's the breakdown of hope. It's Black people reaching a certain level and then just falling right back down again, and just losing hope because there is nothing you can do against the system. And even with me assisting them and getting legal counsel and having everything above board, you often hear stories and you hear that people have been unfairly dismissed and then they lost their case at court. And you just think, well, maybe there was something going on like theft or that you don't know about. But I've actually been inside the systems now. through going through them myself, and I've seen with my own eyes and experienced it. We've got horrific institutionalised racism in schools in South Africa. I've got nowhere with school principals, I've got nowhere with our South African Education Department. I put cases through the South African Human Rights Commission. Exactly the same thing. You just reach a certain level. And the big cases, or the cases that you hear about, they are either sort of for the media shows, it looks like things, systems are still working, or you'll find it's for huge corporations where the staff are all, they had all issues that they overcome or something, and they can't ignore the fact that but if you just, a couple of people on your own, like 10 people dismissed or 5 or whatever, you get nowhere. And I've never known, because I left, I was from Zimbabwe and I finished my schooling in South Africa. So I saw the tail end of the apartheid, and it was awful because in Zimbabwe, we didn't have racism. There was separation. And I was raised in a home where everyone was treated equally. And I always knew being raised as a white, but my parents always said to me, you are the luck of the draw, that you've been born how you were. You could have easily been born living like most of the people in Zimbabwe live. And I was just always taught that if you know more, or you do more, or you have more, you give more and you do more. It doesn't always mean money. It means helping. So I think from a very young age, I grew up, and I always saw my mother especially working. She was religious, my dad wasn't, so she was doing a lot of work for the church. But then I saw the balance that, the things that my father did as well. And I just think it's so sad that I've now had to raise my children in Africa where there is still that complete discrimination, when I actually, I remember my mother having to explain to me when we first came to South Africa, I couldn't understand why adults were treating other adults so badly, because black people are treated almost like children by white people. And even children are allowed to be disrespectful to black people, but not to their own parents, because a black person is just seen as being a lesser person. And it's absolutely, I often say that I think that the first few years that I was here drove me to become who I am today, because I wasn't one that was going to sit. I can't complain about what I experienced, but it broke me as a child to see suddenly a whole lot of people that you've always known are being treated horrifically, and you can't understand why. To see someone being sworn at and treated absolutely just differently as a child, and I'm a very sensitive person, so it really, really broke me. And when I first started working in South Africa, it was still during the final years, or the first few years after 1994. I was probably the first white in South Africa that stood on the side of Malawians and black South Africans and took my white bosses to court for racism and things that were going on in the workplace. So that was in the early 90s. And then I just couldn't stay in South Africa because we couldn't go back to Zimbabwe. So I went to Tanzania, and I've lived there most of my adult life. And I can honestly say that in East Africa, it was wonderful. Because for 14, 15 years, you honestly, you don't notice color, it's just people. And we didn't have this racial bias in all the companies and my job and my friends, and it was wonderful. But then I had to come back to South Africa, and I can't believe that after 29 years nothing has changed. And when I tried to stand up for some of our Indian children at my son's school, and also celebrating Baden Powell Day, which is a horrific colonial killer who killed and did terrible things to black people, especially in Kenya and in South Africa. And they were having a day to celebrate him. And I said to all the parents in the parents' meeting, we've got to stand up. We've got to say, we're not okay with this, we don't want it. And every single white person turned against me. I actually felt like I was up against the wall being attacked by hyenas or something. They bitter hatred. I think the anger is more that you're white, how can you be on their side? And every single parent went against me, but all the Black, Indian, and coloured mothers, you know, came to me behind the scenes, and they were so grateful that someone was speaking up. But to try and explain to my children today what I was explained to at their age, my daughter's 18, and you see, my kids were brought up not even noticing colour, and they couldn't understand when they first came to school in South Africa. Mommy, why are they calling my friend Black? Why? Her name was Susan or whatever. And I just tried to explain to them that it's ignorance. It's the same as you calling somebody red because they've got red hair or blue because they've got blue eyes. And my daughter has always, she's turning 19 this year. She's always had Black boyfriends. And it's because she said to me, they are much nicer than white boys. They treat her better, and they are very close to their parents, good family units and everything. She was in a mainstream high school, and she was getting horrific racism from all the white kids, but also from the Black girls who were saying, "What are you doing with one of our men? Stay in your own lane. You stay in your own colour lane." So she's such a loving, caring person. And I mean, she got involved with the LGBT rights here and BLM movement and everything, just of her own accord. Although she's always said, "I'm never going to be like you, Mom," but she's a compassionate, loving person. And to just see her now having everybody against her, that I actually had to take her out of school because of the racism from both sides, from white people and not wanting her around because she had a Black boyfriend, and her getting it from the Black girls at school. And then she would be invited to a birthday party or something, and they would say to her, "You can come, but you can't bring your boyfriend." And she would say to me, "But you take both of us, not at all. It's not an option for me." And she was always very determined. And I had to say to her, "Logan, you can't do that, because you are going to put him in an awkward situation, because I know what it's like. If it's a birthday party and the parents are there and they've all been drinking a bit, I know how they would make him feel, because I know how my Black friends are made to feel when they are with me here." Or, I mean, I've had Ugandan refugees that I've helped that have been living in my home for the one guy was here for about 6 to 9 months. And I mean, my neighbours on the one side put up extra security. It might have just been a coincidence, but I'd be getting phone calls from neighbours saying, "Are you okay? Is everything all right? You just want to check." This kind of thing. It's terrible. And, you know, I think, why did I have to end up in the most racist country in the world? But then about a year ago, I realized it's probably why I'm here. It's exactly where I'm meant to be, because I can try and help and make changes. And it's just educating people and adults. And unfortunately, and I say racism, it's like cancer. It's being passed on like a genetic defect from one generation to the next. And it's slow, it's silent, and it's deadly. And it's just destroying everything good, as it would destroy the human body to a terminal stage. It's what I see around me. And it's absolutely heartbreaking, because we are at the stage where, and I'm sure you yourself, we don't get to judge people and put ourselves on a platform. We've got to all work together, because this whole world is facing so much at the moment, with all the war and the Ukraine, Russia, and the global banking system and everything. We have to stand together. It's the good religious people and the good people in every race and in every gender. We can't be so ignorant to start to not want to know somebody because of their skin color. It's like saying, "I don't want to mix with you because you've got blonde hair or blue eyes." It's so ignorant, and it's just so ingrained how quickly the hatred flares up. But white people are missing out, because I've lived in Africa my entire life. I've lived in 3 different African countries. I've worked and travelled to both in the East and Southern Africa. every single country you find, people are exactly the same with their morals and values. My life has been so much more enriched, and I've learned so much more life lessons from when I was young, before I had kids, from all my old black mamas and the elders, and from the way I was raised, is that I have such strong, true, genuine, substantial friendships with my black friends, whereas my white friends, it's very shallow. And I prefer to be with my black, and I've got some very good Indian friends here as well. But I'm just so much more comfortable with those people. So I'm also judged because I'm not with my race, and because I give a lot of support to the Nigerians. So, and I'm godless. So there is my 4 kids. They think that I worship the devil and that I'm in with the Nigerian. So I'm automatically labelled a drug taker or drug dealer, just because because the Nigerians have got this negative image put over them as well. So I'm automatically, so I stay in my house. I got refugees in the house, and my daughter's boyfriend is living with us now as well. And friends popping in, and I'm sure that they think I don't go to church, and my kids are homeschooled, and I think I'm really weird. And so it's just one of those things, but it's terrible. And I mean, we know how bad it is in America, but I don't think we knew how bad it was until the George Floyd and then the BLM movement, that we were actually quite shocked in Africa that it was so bad, like the first wave, because, you've got your constitution and your rights and everything works there, and, more so than it does here. And it's just been pretty shocking since I've become aware. And in the UK as well, I'm sure you know as well, there's a lot of racism there as well. There always has been. But the Black Liverpool community are the oldest residents, some of the oldest residents in the UK, in the generations and generations, because they were colonised way before slavery, West Africans from Sierra Leone and present day Nigeria. When Liverpool was just a natural harbour area, which was a good place to dock ship. So there's all this different history that's coming out now as well. Suddenly, in the last few years, people are starting to become more aware of how much has been hidden.
Now, Lynda, that was quite a lot you have shared with us. And I know you have a lot. Of course, I've been fortunate enough to share with you on a number of occasions. But I know for Anya, she has had quite a lot just in those few minutes you have been able to share with us. And I know Anya is left with a different perspective now. But before you go to Anya, because I'm going to ask her about her analysis from what you have said, I know she has had a lot of new stuff from you. I want to ask you, Lynda, as an African, have you ever found yourself in a situation where you thought you are being discriminated because of your whiteness in Africa?
Never. I've never been treated badly by Black people. I've never been in danger. There's this whole image here that you must stay away from Black men because you've been raped and everything. If I was in a dire situation, I would run to my Black friends or a group of Black men before I would run to white men. And you know what? It's a horrible thing to say, and people say that you for Black rights and not helping my own race, but because I live in Africa, I've always helped people who need help, and sadly, it always is the Black people that are the ones getting the short end of the stick, that are being treated like second-class citizens, that are not being treated as equals. So automatically I've gravitated towards helping Black people and got more involved with communities around Africa. And I will say, though, I realized I can get my voice into places that somebody with a lot more experience and who's better known, like Kato, can. And it's only because I'm white. Why will I have articles accepted, or the ICC or war persecution will take a report on me and file it? but they won't do it from Qatar, and it's his own country. And he's got on-the-ground experience of what's happening there, but yet they will probably wouldn't even respond to him. And this is the thing. With my black friends here too, when we joke about it sometimes, if they're really hitting good feelings with something like getting medicine or something they need, and they at their wits' end, they say, well, come in, I don't like to hear it because I don't want to, but we tell it like it's a test. And before you know it, oh no, they found the file, or they do have it. It's just totally, and people don't even realize they're doing it. And you see, like you talk about the ingrained. When I travel overseas, well, I don't anymore because I've got no money. But I mean, when I used to travel a lot, and I always used to be each time shocked when I got off at Heathrow and went to the bathroom, whatever, and I would see white women like my mother's age cleaning the bathroom and everything. I thought, why am I shocked? Housekeepers in the UK
are quite a lot from.
It was. I was like, but why? And white men driving the buses and picking up the refuse and everything. But then on the flip side of that, when I've had friends back in Tanzania and from Uganda, and they are horrified driving through town to see white people begging at the traffic lights. But Mama, how can you can't be some Zulu? You can't be, he's a white person. They are absolutely shocked. And then you see another one. But it's true. I mean, in East Africa, my East African friends that have come here have been shocked. Like, how on earth can a white man be begging at the robots for money? This is unheard of. So you see, we've all got this in different ways without knowing it. And then there are those who've got it at a very deep level who also don't see it. And I mean, I just see some of the things on devastating public holidays where the South Africans have had so many people massacred in the past, where there are still celebrations to celebrate whites slaughtering black people in the Blood River and everything. And they are actually on groups saying they're so proud of it. They don't actually see or know. And my other thing now is, it's 29 years since South Africa got its democracy. Nobody has their land back yet. And when you hear these stories on the news about illegal land occupations, these are people, it's their land. It's generations and generations who have not got their land back. There is still segregation in South Africa, but it's not written into law, because all the black South Africans are still living in townships on the outskirts of the towns. They can never move into the suburbs because you need deposits and to be earning a certain salary and that kind of thing. So they are stuck. Their services are failing: water, electricity, transport's far from town. They're going to pay a lot to get to town for jobs and things. It's absolutely exactly the same. Now they're bringing this in smart cities. So everything's going to be smart. So I've also been outspoken about that, is that smart cities are going to be another form of invisible segregation, because then you'll find all the whites will be moving into smart cities, and then the black people that have been oppressed in the townships will be brought into the rough areas of town where there's a lot of crime and it's cheaper for them. And you're just changing. Nothing has changed. They've just changed the names for things. They've said in our constitutions and our Bill of Rights that we are free and equal in this, and tell us that we are. And this is worldwide, I believe, from what I see, but we're not actually. So there is the segregation, but there's not. But there is actually, because there's definitely people are being kept at different levels. And I don't know if it's that obvious in America and in the first world as it is in a country like South Africa. But people just don't even notice it. They don't even care. So because black people are always in those living conditions, the white bias is blacks are poor, blacks are dirty, they're poverty stricken, they can never do any better, that's just how they are. But they're not. Absolutely not. They are the complete opposite. And I get very, very upset when I hear people getting upset about terrible things happening, like with white people. But yet that is happening every single day on our continent to black people, and no one bats an eyelid. When the Ukraine-Russia thing hit the news, we had a terrorist plane attack in Nigeria that day, with a whole train blown up and people injured and killed, and a whole group of people kidnapped by terrorists and taken off the train. A terrorist attack. And then we had attacks in Karamoja in Uganda, slaughterings that had been going on there for ages, but it made it to the news with photographs of dismembered bodies and, you know, heads, beheadings, and horrific, absolute horrors happening on the same day. Everyone's eyes were on Ukraine, and I don't even think it probably made our news here, and maybe didn't even make it to the overseas news channels, because it's Africa, you see. Whereas we had more people killed in the two countries in those few days than they had in, I think, midway in with Africa and with Win. And I just see, that's where I see a complete imbalance in the world. I'm living in Africa, and I'm saying to people, because I listen to me, because I'm white, we are not a continent of poverty-stricken, primitive people who only know violence and don't know any better and are stupid and are destined to a life of poverty. We are innovative, forward-thinking, critically thinking people who are leaving God behind. Like every day we've got more and more people that are seeing religion for what it is. And when Kato and I do these shows, and we speak to people from around Africa, and you speak to people about issues in their countries, and you listen to the solutions they're coming up with, the ideas they've got, the things being written into law and that. These things will actually work. You sit and you listen to people that have got solutions for Africa's problems, but they will never be able to be in a position where they'll be able to put those into law. If you get into a position, you reach a stage where you've either got to give up what you want or compromise, or you've got to just go with the flow. And that's when a lot of people get compromised. With my writing, I've been asked, will you do investigative journalism for a national newspaper? And I said yes. They wanted me to do a whole expose on one of the municipalities. But when I tried to write an honest article about the massacre of a huge amount of Indian people here during our Zuma riots, they disputed the numbers and the things that I was coming up with. They wanted me to change it. And I said, no, you can't pick and choose what you want from me. I either do investigative journalism, everything truthful, or not at all. You can't just take me for all the corruption that you want to know about municipal accounts and electricity meters and things, and all the work I do on that, but then not be prepared to speak openly about the Phoenix massacre. But I can guarantee you, if it had been a massacre in a white suburb, they would have had me on the front page. So you see, this is what we're up against all the time. And I don't know if it's as bad overseas, but it's really, really bad in South Africa in particular.
Thank you so much, Lynda. That was quite telling. Now, back to Anya. You have heard from the horse herself.
The horse's mouth.
Horse's mouth. That's a good one. Thank you. You have heard from Lynda. Lynda has lived that practical. She actually has experienced rather a lot that I haven't even experienced. So Lynda, being an African, and of course living in a very volatile region, South Africa, Zambia, Zimbabwe, she has seen a lot, and she has traveled to my own country, she has grown in Tanzania, so she has a wealth of experience and expertise in the area. So when you talk about white supremacy, Lynda is an expert there because she has lived it, she has seen it, and she has talked about it. She has actually paid the cost. I won't say it for her. But now, going back to you, Anya, having heard from Lynda's experience, now we look forward to listening to you from your own experience now in the American way of life, in the European way of life? What do you make of what Lynda has said, and from your own experience? Let us carry it from there.
Yeah. So I think what Lynda said about, that it wasn't as clear before how bad it's gotten in the US. I think that that's kind of just true around the world. There wasn't like a total awareness of how bad things had gotten. But so, for example, where I grew up in St. Louis, one of the more segregated cities in the United States, it was very severely redlined. And I don't know if your listeners are familiar with that practice, but redlining was essentially the legal practice in the United States, now illegal, but we're still living with the consequences of this practice. But people who were putting, real estate agents, the real estate industry was essentially creating, these segregated neighborhoods, and there were no consequences for decades. So as a result, we're still living with these neighborhoods. And in St. Louis, for example, there is a very distinct road that everybody knows is like, once you cross that road, you're into the poor neighborhoods where consequently a lot of Black people live. And so the shooting that a lot of people know about of Mike Brown happened in my hometown. And this was in one of these very segregated neighborhoods. Now, my family, actually, my very white parents grew up in this area, but it actually became more segregated since they were children. And so that just kind of further just because the legal practice is gone doesn't mean that there isn't segregating still happening. So like it's very insidious, and it happens over decades, and it's really, it can be kind of slow. It can be kind of fast too. I mean, that's how they built the airport in my hometown. They essentially said, oh, well, we need this airport and we need this land. So we're going to need all these poor Black people to get out because we need this land. And they displaced all these people,
That's what they do here all the time.
And I want to bring the point back to something both of you have mentioned, actually, about wealth, disparity, and white supremacy. And Kato, you mentioned it in the history with, when you had these people from all sorts of different places working side by side. And then these capitalists were like, oh shit, there's a lot more of them than there are of us. We need to create these new divisions so that they're fighting at each other and they're not looking at us like we're the problem anymore. So that's how it started.
Exactly.
And I just want to point out that all of this stuff is rooted in capitalism. All of these systems
it is, absolutely,
come back to very, very wealthy people that want to keep their identities hidden, so you don't even know who to criticize. We all know who Elon Musk is, but there are awful rich people whose identities are hidden and are very responsible for a lot of the same stuff. So that's really what's at the root of all of this, is that
I agree with you 100%. And it goes back so far in history.
Totally.
To the same people.
Exactly. So that's, that's what is at the root of that. And it's really hard to have these conversations in Western cultures because we're obsessed with capitalism. It's all we know. And we think it's the only option because we've grown up with all this propaganda. So we think that communism is Satan. And even us non-religious people have found a way to demonize things that aren't capitalism. So, we're not immune from it. And so it's really, really challenging to have these conversations because there's not even this agreement, this baseline agreement that no, capitalism is rooted at, the bottom of all of this. It's so hard. So, we can have these, frankly, it's easier to have these conversations about racism because it's easier to see. Whereas these systems that have been established for centuries around capitalist practice, they're just so normalized in our brains that we don't
know any difference.
Right, exactly.
And we in Africa aspire to that.
Yes,
that's exactly. It's nice because we are all our wealth is taken from us, but we are made to lust after that and to want that and to be that and to attain that is a sign of being successful. But it's going completely, pulling us further and further away from our true African culture and traditions. And we see the split here as well with religion. And in recent years, the splits with the LGBT and trans communities, absolutely. Now we're just split everywhere. It's race, it's religion, it's LGBT, it's everything. Now we're all just divided. And in our own countries, our tribes are divided. And we call our neighbors next door foreigners. And you need a visa to come into this country, even though you can like hop over the border fence. But you foreigners. I take an international flight. If I fly from here to Botswana or Nigeria, it's an international flight on my continent.
Yeah.
And I've got to get foreign exchange and a visa and all this. I mean, it's ridiculous. But we just think it's normal. And it's so right what you say, Anya, it's capitalism. But when you start talking about that, people just think conspiracy theory because they don't have the knowledge of what's actually going on. I find that a lot here. So I don't talk about it. I don't write about it publicly. Because people, if you say there's a small group of people controlling the world who've been controlling it since like the year dot, and they are all connected to the same generations that often people will just think that you're one of those conspiracy theorists, you know, because we've been indoctrinated to see that. And you're dealing with people who all believe in God, see, yeah. So God's going to solve the problem. It's not for us. That's from the devil, and it's a sign of the end times. So we don't really know about it. You know, God won't let us down. Right. So it's very, very frustrating. I don't know if you have that much influence in America as we do here. But their minds are full of God, 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 God. And it kind of freezes any rational thought, even when you present things to people.
Yeah, and I mean, it bogs down all of these conversations about systemic oppression because it's bypassing, right? I mean, it's saying, you know, like, oh, we don't need to address that. God's got us, right? And exactly. It's like, wow, that's an amazing, like, bypass around this very difficult conversation. It must be really nice to believe in something where you don't have to engage in very difficult work or
exactly. It's like being a child and being protected by your parents. And then we're conditioned here in Africa in our schooling system and with the religion is that we don't think for ourselves. If you want to pass your exams, you must pray and God will help you pass your exams. And, you know, anything you achieve in life, you give thanks to God for that. If you have a baby, if you get a new job, everything is thanks to God. He's good. He's blessed you with all these things. And I say to people that it's you doing these things and you give a credit to something you've never seen, that's no proof of. But then you're labeled as being bitter and this and that and all. And I'm regardless, you see. So of course you think like that. Of course you think these crazy things like it's one small group of people controlling everything. You know, you've got the devil.
Thank you, Lynda. Thank you, both of you. Lynda and Anya, taking back Anya to the subject matter. I know this is a very big topic we are discussing, but the subject matter, and it has been helpful for our viewers to listen to all this, to hear all this being said by both of you. I think it is healthy, it's important, it's educative, and thank you so much. But going back to the topic, yes, the problem with ethical culture and organized humanism today. We have seen the background, we have heard all this. We are going to take it back to Anya because we have 13 minutes left. In fact, we have 26 minutes left to end the show. It is so interesting. But of course, we promise we are going to have you back when you are free. Any other week when you'll be free. We have to discuss all these things in sequence until when you exhaust them. We shall talk about the LGBT issues, the trans issues. We shall keep on inviting you on this platform. You won't be limited on this platform. Whenever you want us and there's space, we will always invite you here. It's home. Now, going back to the problem with ethical culture and organized humanism today, where you have been very critical, you have been very strong advocate for reform. And I know Lynda Tilley there, you see, has been an advocate for this. Basically, she has been fought just like we have been. She hasn't told you that, I know. I won't allow you to talk about it today because she will not finish in the next few minutes. She has been too much abused for her kindness, for her boldness. She has suffered that, Lynda, there you see. But now, I'll take it back to you, Anya. Having had all this, I know that an organization has decided to work on your guidance, to listen to you. And I know I've been pointing out these issues, but I want you to summarize them for a viewer seeing you for the first time. What are these issues affecting us as people in organized humanism today that you want us to address?
Yeah, so unfortunately, a lot of the people that leave religion and come to humanism aren't shedding all of these, oppressive systems that they think they are. They're shedding religion, yes, but they're not shedding white supremacy culture. That's a different thing to tackle. And they're bringing it with them in the same way that they're bringing, patriarchy with them. And that's why we end up with all these hierarchical structures in organized humanism that very much mirror, the similar structures within the church. Like, they're really similar. And it always makes me laugh a little bit. I mean, there's such this vehemency to prove that, ethical culture and humanism, we are better, we have better values, we do better. But then we have all these, we have a lot of the similar problems as the church. It's just that we aren't, we're a little bit more honest about, the oppression that religion brings. So that is the main crux of it. It's that this didn't go away. People became humanists. It's still very much there. And it's going to take a long time to unlearn. It's a lifelong thing. I mean, you can't be conditioned as a child and then just poof, one day it's gone. There's no magic pill. There's nothing. You have to just keep chipping away at it your whole life. And it's exhausting, and a lot of people don't want to do it. And I get that. It's hard. But that's what we have to do. And that is work within humanism that I think a lot of people are very, very challenged by. Because a lot of what's in our movement also is this academic elitism, this we're very smart people. We really are.
Absolutely.
But that gets in our way sometime. And we use it to, again, bypass these very difficult conversations. I see this all the time with white men that try to intellectualize their way out of white supremacy culture, out of their role in it all. And it's an impressive amount of mental gymnastics, don't get me wrong, but it is a lot of dedicated energy to trying to prove that you're not part of something that you are definitely part of. And the problem at the end of the day with that is that if you cannot recognize where you are part of the problem, you can't be part of the solution. It's just not possible.
Absolutely.
So that's really the summary of all of this, is that my experiences in these movements have led to some pretty egregious uses of power. And that's outside of just the context of white supremacy culture. That's in patriarchy too. It's in ableism, which, we haven't even touched on ableism. There's so much we could talk about with that. But yeah, so these are very, good. They're very present in humanism today. And there's a lot of resistance to facing that. And, that's typical of pretty much all white society is struggling to face these issues. But where it is really troubling is where you have a group of humanists who really and truly claim to have these just beautiful values. That's what drew me in, is that I stuck with these movements because the values are truly, truly beautiful and something that I want to live out in my daily life. But when you have these groups that say that they claim these values and then they don't do the hard work of, this challenging the systemic oppression, well, then they're talking out both sides of their mouth. And how can you believe them? How can you say to other people that you want to bring into this movement that they're being honest, that they're talking to you in good faith when they're talking out both sides of their mouth? I don't know how to
fix it. But they can't see it. That's the thing.
I don't know how to fix that other than educating people and saying like, hey, like we just got to have these conversations. I know they're uncomfortable, but we got to dig in. I mean, we just have to. And so that article that I wrote was really meant as a conversation starter. Because I mean, I've read more since I wrote that article that I think needs to be, added on. So this is an ongoing process for me too. Like it's ongoing. It's always on learning. And I think a lot of people in humanism really want to just do a thing and then check, done. A lot of people want to do that. It's easier to just do one thing one time, be done. I left religion one time, I'm done, but it's not like that. And there's a lot to unlearn and a lot to unpack. And so that's why I wrote it, is that I want to, I'm not trying to, like I mentioned, I think last time, I'm not trying to be a fire starter. I'm not trying to burn everything to the ground. I'm doing this as a labor of love. I want to see this movement thrive and really bring in the people that need this movement. There's a lot of Africans that could use this movement, and it's not safe for them right now. It's just not, and we need to make it safer. We owe it people to make it safer.
That is extremely beautiful, Anya, there, and I do agree with you 100%.
100%.
Of the way we work, there are so many people who have locked out. But Anya, to you back to your article briefly, you mentioned a few things. Number one, you say that white supremacism affects all of us, but not equally.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you say that it shapes how we think and act. And number three, you say that it can be deconstructed and repressed. Deconstructed and replaced. So I love that. I'd like to hear you talking about those three areas briefly towards our conclusion, Anya.
Sure. So that first part about how it affects all of us, but unequally. You said at the very beginning of this, when, the people that were working side by side then had the capitalists convince them that they were in some sort of superior class to the inferior, darker skinned people. That is white supremacy culture affecting them too. They had their identities erased. Irish people had to give up their Irish identity to be white. Same as Portuguese, same as German, same as English, all of them. They all gave up their identities so that they could be part of this white, ambiguous race that doesn't really exist. And they didn't just give up their identity, they gave up their power. They gave up their power. They had more power together than they did in these new groups. Hello, Lynda's cat.
She about
so cute.
That is our co-host.
Yeah. So the second bit, can you remind me the second bit that I wrote, Kato? The second point?
The second point was that it shapes how we think and act. It shapes how we think and act.
Yeah. So like I said, we all grew up with this. It's all socialized into us in some form or fashion. And then if we move somewhere else, it's socialized into us in a different way. Like Lynda moving to South Africa, she had to learn a whole different set of norms to move through South African culture. She had to learn a whole new set that was completely unfair to people. And that affects how she thinks and acts. And I had to learn these norms growing up in St. Louis, living in a highly segregated city. And actually, I went to a elementary school where I was, I think, one of like 5 white children. So for me, that was actually very, it took me a while to understand that the city was segregated, because I personally was in a more, Black neighborhood. So I didn't understand
Yes.
that for a while. So when I moved to a significantly more white suburb, I had to recalibrate my thinking. I was then in the majority, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm being seen differently now. So it changes the way we think and we operate, because we're operating around these structures that are just so deeply rooted. They have effect on our decisions, on our biases. In fact, Harvard has an implicit association test, which I recommend everyone takes. And you go through it and it'll help you assess your bias. And you can do that on a scale of skin tone. You can do that with, sexuality, with gender. There's all sorts of implicit association tests that Harvard has. But that's what I'm really talking about, is like, it's so bad, we can measure it. Like, it's terrible.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually something you set up for that.
Right. It's
That's how
measurable.
bad it is.
It's not just I think a lot of people think this is anecdotal. Like, no, it's been studied. It's real. Like, it's so real that Harvard knows about it. Go look at Harvard's website. And so the third thing about it,
the third thing was that it can be deconstructed and replaced. It means the way forward. What do you make of that? How do you explain that more?
Yeah, so a lot of people, because we're socialized into this, feel like it's natural because it's all they've ever known. But it's not. It's a social construct, and we are very capable of unlearning social constructs and replacing them with something else. That's the key, though. We can't just get rid of it. There has to be something else. It has to be equity focused, has to be inclusive. It has to be focused around these principles that, frankly, I think humanists are really well positioned with their values, with our values, to do something like that, if we so chose to commit to something like that.
I agree with you.
Yeah. So, and I think a lot of people that push back on this concept of white supremacy culture are often really intimidated by the idea of losing privilege. And that is, just another feature of white supremacy culture. But I think if we start talking about, okay, what can we replace this system with? There's going to be a power vacuum if you remove white supremacy culture, and it'll refigure in some other way unless we replace it with something that is really centered around sharing power, not erasing power, sharing power, because we can't get rid of it, right? We can never get rid of power. So we have to find a way to distribute it more equitably. And I do believe that humanists are very well positioned to do that.
Yes, we're probably one of the few groups that can actually, with no bias and no anger and or any vengeful ways of wanting to do things. We're just doing it for people to make it better for everybody.
Right. Yeah. And it's like, you're only strong as your weakest link. I really believe that. If you take care of the people in your community that are suffering the most, everybody wins. Everybody is better because of that. So that's really what, I think we should replace it with, is a system where we're sharing power, where we're really distributing resources equitably and making sure that people really have an equal voice. I mean, that, it's easier said than done. But again, I think if you have the right values, there's a much better chance that we can do this. Again, humanists not doing this well, but I believe that it is possible for them to reorient themselves in a direction, in a posture where they can do this better.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anya. Back to Lynda. Lynda, now having heard what Anya has proposed, she has written at length, and I know I've written. Now, to you, Lynda, who has been in Africa also working with humanist organizations, working with humanists in trouble, working with LGBTI people in trouble, I know you have observed a few things that show white supremacists creeping in this organization in Africa.
Yes,
I would like you to share your experience, but also give us suggestions in the next 5 minutes, Lynda.
See, it's been that's Kato's very polite way of saying, don't carry on for another half an hour. Lynda will wrap up in 5 minutes. Okay. So the difficulty is Black people in Africa still have this attitude that white people are godlike, and you must be grateful to have them with you. You honoured the white person is involved with your group or whatever. I've seen white men making derogatory comments to Black women on their groups, and it's let go. But if a Black man made a derogatory comment, the other men would say, get off the group, you don't speak to women like that. But because it's a white guy, they let it go. And I asked him, why? Why are you doing that? You won't accept that from your own brothers, saying something, making a lewd sexual comment to a woman in a normal chat, but you just let it go with him. Why? You see, and it's that thing. Whites have to be obeyed. Whites know better. They've got more money. They're in better positions. They're better educated. So what they say, or we follow it. And this is what I'm trying so hard to. You treat everybody the same. People have got to earn your respect. I say to my Black friends, you don't automatically give them your respect, and it works both ways. You've got to earn their respect, and they've got to earn yours. You don't automatically. I know my Black friends wouldn't just automatically accept a strange woman into their group or something they were working on with open arms, or even my Black female friends. But it's because I'm white. Kato will welcome. You know what I did for you? It's like chalk and cheese. And I'm trying to teach people that you've got to stop seeing also the problem here is that white people can't do the things that white people are actually doing. They forget that there was no genocide, rape, destruction of property and concentration camps or anything in Black culture until the whites came here. Our puppet presidents today have been trained by the very, very best in business who've got years and years and years of experience with conning people and with, covering up things and I've taught them that. And it's a terrible thing because it always makes me racist against white people. But I'm not. I'm anti anything that's evil and that it isn't feeding a person emotionally and physically and equally. And sadly, I mean, I'm sure you will agree with me, is that if you have to take race, if you look at all the really bad things and the evil and the people that it is white people. So if they're going to judge Black, coloured, whatever, then I have to say that it's fact. It's certainly not fact that Black people are lesser people, but it is certainly fact that the majority of evil and control and power and orders being given to kill in that are being done by white people. That is a irrefutable fact. And it has been systematically throughout history, recent history, that we know, like colonialism, and not just in Africa, around the world, what's been happening to places like India and all that as well. And then, we have the transatlantic slave trade before that. And it goes back so much further. We have to start looking beyond what we've been told. You can have presidents of countries who are very, very evil people. You can have pastors in your churches that are raping children. It's not that I can't even think what would happen because he was a Mzungu. What? You didn't think it would happen because he was white. Wow. It's like you say, it's going to take generations to get it out. We know we're not going to achieve that in our lifetime. So we've got to say, this is the problem we face. How do we best try and start fixing it? Because the humanism movement is really taking off worldwide now, especially in Africa with internet, and we're all, about 12 countries we work very closely together. I always say to people, it's very important. We are the first generation of godless Africans, united. for good. None of us is driven by power, money, ego, saying we really are doing it for people. Our presidents worldwide are never going to solve our problems because they are always what's in it for them. It's power, it's control. For us, it really is about people. So it's so important for us to set a solid foundation for humanism in Africa and worldwide, because now you realize that things are, just say you're living in a predominantly white, owned, rural, whatever country, it's happening in America, it's happening in the UK, it's happening everywhere. If we are this new humanism movement, it has to be on a solid foundation to hold the rest of the house. Because this is our duty as humanists, I feel, because we've got to make it better for those who follow behind us. That is our immortality, that is our eternal life. It's the foundations that we are building now with our knowledge for what we've experienced, living with racial bias, which hopefully in a few generations' time it will become the past. We've got to put down the right foundations. And what worries me is that international organizations that are leading these movements are not in touch with people on the ground. We've got organizations here in Uganda that are headed up by white people. Why? Humanism schools have been established very longer than anywhere. Collected a whole lot like that. Why on earth? Just a quick example, when I lived in East Africa, I was originally employed as a camp manager because I was in the hotel industry. They only ever employed expatriates managers. After I've been working for several years, I realized why on earth are they paying huge salaries and private costs to employ only white people for the camps? I spoke to the CEOs and I said, you don't want someone from the UK coming and they're hosted by a UK person or an American person. And when the Tanzanians had much more knowledge than any of the expatriates, and they had started calling South African expats, and there's no racism in Tanzania like there is here. And I could see there were going to be problems, and we did start getting problems. So I did a groundbreaking thing was by asking him to just give it a trial run by putting black Tanzanian managers into some of our camps. And it works absolutely brilliantly, but they are negotiated salaries on a par with the expatriates. And that now, in Tanzania, most of the time, everywhere you go, it's all about the Tanzanians. It's those small changes that we have to start making. Yeah. And black people need to know you can do it. You're fully capable. You are more than capable of doing this and taking leadership roles. And white people have got to realize that, yes, black people can really do a fantastic, amazing job. They don't need to be babied all the time and have a white person overseeing them. That's the other issue.
Lynda, I have to say, you have said it better. I can't even add anything more. Black people must realize that they are not saying a few things. Yes. They must wake up. They must wake up. We must wake up. I love that. Now, Lynda, we are out of time, ladies, and I can't say I don't want even to let you go because it has been so interesting. I want to promise that we are going to have Anya back. Lynda, we're going to have Anya back at one point, and we discuss so many things: LGBT issues, capitalism, all this class oppression, and all these other things. I mean, you have a lot. Anya, you have a lot to share with us, and of course with our audience. Me, I'm a student, always listening and learning from both of you. I want to appreciate you so much for giving us this time. Anya, your parting shot. We have 2 minutes.
What do you want me to say, Kato? What shall I close with today?
Way forward. I mean, you have said it all, but of course, for humanism to survive, just for emphasis, what should we do?
Well, you know what? I think the best way that we can start is by doing the work internally within ourselves, because it is so hard to do this work externally and encourage other people to do it unless you're modeling that behavior yourself. So I'm not asking any white person to do the work that I'm not already doing myself. I have to do this work too. And so I think it's really important that we do that. So if there are any white folks watching that really want to dig into this stuff, I recommend starting with Me and White Supremacy by Layla Saad. It is a 28-day journaling exercise where you really dig into your own white supremacy within yourself. It's very self-reflection based. So that's a good place to start. So I would recommend with that. I'll leave you with that for today, and then next time we connect, I'll give some other resources.
Thanks, Anya. That's
Thank
great.
you so much. Lynda, your parting shot.
Well, I think, just in tandem with Anya there, I think that we need to start doing a similar thing in Africa, but with Black people and coloured and Indian and all people, teaching them that they are good enough and they must stand up and start speaking out and going for positions that they can do, because they are more than capable. It's like a child. If you never let them ride the bicycle without planning wheels, they'll never learn. And we need to empower Black people to take a look at themselves, just like white people need to look, because the majority people of colour in Africa, and we are also oppressed. We need to show them. And it doesn't have to be done in a militant way or an angry way, but just come into yourselves and be who you are as people. Because it's so important that the children, the examples that we're setting for our children as well, as adults. Children are growing up with oppressed parents and they are thinking that it's normal and that they are always going to be second-class citizens. And it's destroying children's hopes and drive in life. So I think that on the flip side of that, we really need to work with our Black communities. You are good enough. You are, what you say is valid. You can do it. You don't need white people behind you all the time. And I just think that it's working together and accepting. We've all made mistakes. I'm not personally responsible for things that have happened to Black people in Africa. I'm just not responsible for all the things that we see. But our race is. So I feel we have to take responsibility for that. I didn't come and steal land and do this and do that. And Africa is my home. I've got generations going back 5 backs that were born here in Zambia. But I am still white by nature of the colour of my skin. I need to, like people are taught in religion, you've got to pay penance for your sins or whatever. No. We've got to make up for the wrongs that we or others close to us have done, if they're not here to do it, in order to connect as humans. And once our continents are whole, we then start reaching out to other continents and realizing that I always said we will only ever get our artifacts back. It's the people like the Anyas and the Yis and the Me's that are going to make the big changes one day far in the future, with resolving issues that we've all got, not our governments and presidents. And we have to do that because we are all the same human family, all share the same mitochondrial Eve, the Black female genetic. We are all from Africa. So for this movement, the humanism, it can only be Africa that makes significant changes, reaching out.
Thank you.
Humanism started here, life started here. We are all from Africa. Let's come full circle. It's our responsibility as Africans especially to step up to the plate and to work with people like Anya and be open to criticism and conversations and just love each other. It's not a fantasy world. It's not going to happen in my lifetime, but it's something that I know we can achieve as humans, because inherently we are good. The majority of us are good people, and we're all exactly the same. All of us.
I will pause it there, Lynda. Thank you so much. We are all Africans. We all come from Africa. We are one human race. Thank you so much, Lynda. Ladies sharing with us. Anya promises you are going to be back at your convenience, a day when you'll be happy to be on this show. Any day, any Saturday you want to be here with us, we shall simply say, come back
All right. Yeah.
Well, I've said to Anya, she was coming to some digital nomad here in Africa. She can base herself in South Africa with me, and we can set her up in Uganda, Malawi, Kenya. She can do a wonderful tour around Africa, and she won't have to pay for any accommodation because we've got so many humanists that will have her. She can go to work at school in Uganda and Kenya. Oh, she'll have a lovely time. Imagine how much work we could all do working together now on the ground. It would be amazing. Something to consider.
I'll keep it in mind.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Anya. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Lynda. And for the viewers who have sent lots of messages, I haven't been able to read the messages, but I can see so many messages on the screen. Thank you so much for watching us, and please visit our website, visit our page, Call to Active Africa, on the video pages. Support Anya's work. Support Anya's work. It's very important. Anya, can you please tell the viewers where to get your work?
You can go to my website, anyaovermann.com. It's ANYA over MANN.com.
We'll put the link at the bottom of the video as well.
Thank you.
Everyone viewing us today, thank you so much. And we are saying bye-bye. We shall have Anya next time. Thank you so much for being part of this crew and show, and our producing team. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.